Welcome back, movie lovers. Today, we're diving into My Teacher, My Obsession, 2018, a gripping thriller that reveals the dark consequences of a student's dangerous fixation on her teacher. One evening, a school custodian finishes his cleaning when a sudden scream shatters the silence. Alarmed, he rushes toward the noise and finds a terrified female student in a classroom. As he runs for help, another girl, hands covered in blood, warns him to flee. Weeks earlier, English teacher Chris and his daughter Riley start fresh at a new school. Kyla, a quiet aspiring journalist, secretly snaps photos for the yearbook. Meanwhile, Trisha, a popular student, orders Kyla to take flattering pictures of her and mocks her appearance. Moments later, she notices Chris and boldly declares she'll make him hers. As the English class begins, Riley, Trisha, and Kyla end up in the same room with Chris. When the bell rings, Kyla strikes up a conversation with Riley, bonding over their shared love for the arts. Before parting, Kyla subtly learns that Riley is Chris's daughter and suggests they study together. Riley gladly agrees. Later, Kyla secretly observes Chris from a distance, snapping photos while keeping a close watch. At home, Riley excitedly tells Chris about her new friends, mentioning Kyla. Meanwhile, Kyla returns home to find her mother, Jess, acting strangely. Jess has been exercising more and even bought a new dress. Kyla suspects she's dating someone. Jess confirms she met someone at a grocery store but keeps the details secret for now. That evening, Kyla imagines a moment where she and Chris share something intimate in her room. The next day, Riley invites Kyla over to strengthen their friendship. During their chat, Kyla talks about wanting a more mature partner, and Riley jokes about how hard it is to find someone like that in high school. In a brief distraction, the new acquaintance excuses herself to use the bathroom, giving Kyla the chance to sneak into Chris's bedroom and touch his bedsheet without Riley noticing. The next day in English class, Kyla can't take her eyes off Chris, watching him closely. Trisha, meanwhile, makes several attempts to catch his attention. After class, Trisha surprises Riley by revealing that their teacher is the father of the new student. Trisha then wonders why Kyla spends time with Riley, the first person to approach her. She asks for Kyla's phone number, which Kyla provides, unaware of her angry gaze. Later, the journalist confronts Riley with intensity, warning her that Trisha is after her father. She mentions a former history teacher who was dismissed for an inappropriate relationship with Trisha, expressing concern for her friend. The following day, Kyla calls Riley to ask about Chris. Riley reassures her that there's no need to worry, as her father isn't the type to behave inappropriately. He's actually dating someone he met at the grocery store. Kyla panics when she remembers her mom's story and realizes Jess is getting ready for a date. In a rush, she hangs up and answers the doorbell, finding Chris standing there with a bouquet for Jess. After a brief introduction, Jess accepts the flowers, sweetly smiling. Kyla, feeling jealous, decides to cause trouble by spilling water on Chris, pretending it was an accident. Chris, worried about the possible delay, suggests they stay in for their date, which Jess happily agrees to, unaware of Kyla's hidden intentions. As dinner progresses, the adults enjoy their time together. Later, Kyla excuses herself, retreating to her room, already planning her next move to ruin her mom's date. As the evening goes on and the adults grow closer, Kyla suddenly bursts into tears, claiming to have seen a man outside her window. Concerned, Chris goes to check, but finds nothing. Kyla continues to pretend, acting terrified in front of her mom, further disrupting their evening. The next day, Kyla acts distant toward Riley. When Riley asks about it, Kyla accuses her of ignoring her warnings about Trisha and hanging out with her anyway. Hurt, Riley decides to keep her distance. The following day, Kyla takes provocative photos of herself at school. As Riley tries to apologize, Kyla accidentally opens her locker, and the printed pictures fall out, causing a scene. Kyla walks away and heads to Chris's classroom to complain, with Riley following her and witnessing the interaction. After class one day, Chris offers Kyla a ride, which she accepts. When they reach Jess's house, Kyla pretends to take photos for the yearbook but secretly snaps pictures of Chris's text messages. Jess, reluctantly reading the messages, discovers they're inappropriate and sent by someone named Trisha. A confrontation follows when Chris returns from the bathroom, and Kyla listens in from another room, overhearing the tense exchange. Realizing Chris's true nature, Jess demands that he leave her house, and Kyla follows him in the car. But instead of seeking revenge, Kyla surprises him by initiating an intimate encounter. The teacher, shocked, doesn't respond, and Kyla leaves, leaving him speechless. Back in her room, Kyla retrieves a phone she had previously used to message Chris while pretending to be Trisha. She decides to get rid of the phone to erase any evidence. The next day, Trisha tries to seduce Chris again, but Kyla steps in dramatically, returning Chris's clothes that he supposedly left at her house. The whole class witnesses the scene, and Riley watches everything unfold. Kyla's actions leave everyone stunned, and her manipulation continues as she tries to control the situation. Tensions rise as the web of deceit and inappropriate behavior intensifies. After class, surprisingly, she kisses the teacher before leaving Chris feeling disgusted. Later, Riley informs Kyla that Trisha was summoned by school officials due to her inappropriate actions, but Kyla dismisses her friend's concern. Later, at Riley's party, Kyla sneaks into Chris's room and attempts to be intimate with him. He resists at first but eventually gives in. Their moment is abruptly interrupted when Riley walks in on them. At the lively party, Chris steps outside to find his daughter. They have a tense exchange, which catches the attention of everyone nearby. Inside, Chris looks for his keys, but Kyla stops him. She suggests picking up where they left off since the party is winding down. However, Chris is determined to find his daughter, leaving Kyla frustrated and wondering if Riley means more to him than she does. The next day, Jess receives a message from Riley saying they need to talk. As the tension escalates, after class, everyone leaves except Kyla, who stays behind to confront Chris about his distant behavior. Suddenly, Jess storms into the room and slaps Chris, ordering her daughter to leave. Riley watches, clearly disappointed. Jess confronts Kyla about her actions, calling them inappropriate, but Kyla defends herself, claiming jealousy. Jess finally realizes that Kyla was behind the pictures and the schemes all along. Kyla, undeterred, insists that she's in love and demands that her mother stay out of it. Desperate to reach Chris, Kyla repeatedly calls him, but he doesn't answer. Riley confronts her father, where he admits to feeling broken after almost losing his daughter due to Jess's actions. He apologizes and promises to do whatever it takes to keep Riley with him. Later, Kyla sets up a meeting and manipulates the situation to make it appear as though Trisha attacked her, leaving Trisha shocked. Chris arrives and tends to Kyla while Riley calls for help. Trisha is arrested, and Kyla enjoys the attention from Chris. At the hospital, Kyla uses the incident to convince Jess that Trisha is targeting her. Jess agrees but makes Kyla promise not to see Chris anymore. As Chris and Riley arrive, Kyla begs her mother to say goodbye to Chris, but Riley steps in. She explains that the situation made her father realize he needs help coping, and she will support him. Kyla then asks Riley to cover the volleyball game for the yearbook, and urges her to say goodbye to Chris. Riley greets Chris warmly, but he firmly denies any romantic feelings. He decides to leave, believing distancing himself from Kyla is the only way to end the chaos she's caused in their lives. Despite Kyla's claims of love, Chris calls her delusional and walks away for good. Left alone, Kyla's gaze lands on a scalpel beside her bed. Meanwhile, a teacher drives to school, sending a voice message to his daughter, asking to meet in his classroom for an important talk. After receiving the message, Riley finds herself in a dimly lit hallway, while Jess frantically realizes her daughter is missing. Kyla approaches Riley, cryptically stating that only one woman exists in Chris's life before attacking her with the scalpel. Kyla then heads to Chris's classroom, holding the scalpel close to his neck, obsessing over him. Chris denies any feelings for her, which only fuels Kyla's rage. In the meantime, Riley crawls toward her father's classroom, desperate to escape. Kyla suggests starting a family with Chris, offering to bear him a child since Riley doesn't seem to fit into their future plans. Chris angrily rejects her and demands to know where his daughter is. Kyla reacts by pushing him away, causing him to stumble and hit his head on a nearby table. As the janitor and Riley hear the chaos, Riley finds the strength to stand up and warns the janitor to run. Kyla swiftly takes down the janitor, and Riley seizes the chance to escape. The journalist quickly catches up to her, ready to strike, but Riley bravely fights back, managing to break free. The struggle intensifies as Riley lands a punch on Kyla. Undeterred, Riley leaps onto her while a journalist nearby comments that Kyla feels no remorse. With all her energy, Riley strikes Kyla with both hands. Soon, authorities arrive, and Chris rushes to his daughter before she's taken away in an ambulance. Surprisingly, Kyla is also transported in another ambulance. Later, in a new town and home, Riley bids her father farewell on his first day of school, receiving his well wishes for her college debut. Chris walks her to the car, unaware of the distant, watchful eyes of a hooded woman. Thank you all so much for watching.